afternoon, Harry.
Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. The former headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and undisputably one of the most powerful wizards to ever exist in the Harry Potter universe. A great leader, and the reason why our main group of heroes was able to defeat Lord Voldemort in the end, Albus Dumbledore's contributions to the fight against the dark arts can never be forgotten. And we have to always remember how he started in his humble beginnings as just a common Hogwarts student like any other, in the house that we all know he was in, Ravenclaw. That's right, we're taking him back. So drop your books and grab your pointy hats because we're back to Hogwarts in this episode of Constant Review. Ravenclaw House is the most forgotten and overlooked house in Hogwarts. You'd figure it'd be Hufflepuff. In fact, it's mentioned constantly how people often forget about Hufflepuffs. But the thing is, it's mentioned so often about how people forget about Hufflepuffs that they're talked about far more than Ravenclaws are. In fact, if you go through your list of well-known Harry Potter characters and count them off one by one, it'll take you a while before you come up with a Ravenclaw character. I mean, besides Luna. And considering that there were 4 DA members in Harry's year that were in Ravenclaw, Terry Boot, Anthony Goldstein, Padma Patil, and Michael Corner, the fact that Ravenclaw's contributions to the book series is neglected and forgotten seems like kind of a travesty. In fact, amongst Harry Potter fans, Ravenclaw House is the second most common house, second only to Gryffindor, and let's face it, most people just say they're in Gryffindor because they want to be in the same house as the protagonist of the story, not because they actually embody the spirits of bravery and courage in running headfirst into fights. I mean, to be honest, if you're reading a bunch of books over and over again about wizards, you're probably a Ravenclaw. Despite this, though, there are very few known Ravenclaws in the Harry Potter universe. In fact, in the Order of the Phoenix, a group dedicated to fighting Voldemort, the only character that we know who wasn't a Gryffindor was Nymphadora Tonks, who was a Hufflepuff. So not one member of the Order of the Phoenix that we know of was in Ravenclaw House. J.K. Rowling was even aware of this discrepancy after finishing the books. So aware, in fact, that she later ended up attributing characters that we previously hadn't known their house and attributing those characters to Ravenclaw. Let's look at some of the additions that Ravenclaw House got out of this deal. You guys remember Quirinius Quirrell? That guy who wanted power and helped Voldemort try to steal the Philosopher's Stone in Book 1? Clearly a Slytherin, right? Nope, Ravenclaw. What about the girl who died in the bathroom, whose ghost haunted it for years? We never really found out anything about her except that she really liked to creep on boys when they were taking baths in the prefect's bathroom. What house? Could be anything, right? Nope, you guessed it, Ravenclaw. And lastly, who can forget Gilderoy Lockhart? My god, a character who is defined by his ineptitude to do spells. In fact, as he even says himself, the only spell he's really competent with are memory charms. A man who's so determined for fame and glory that he's willing to find and track down heroes who have saved many people across the world, wipe their memories, and steal their accomplishments. What house is he in? Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
It's pretty obvious what you're about to do.
Ravenclaw. House that built itself on intelligence, dedication for higher learning, and academic achievement, relegated to producing mediocre villains and truly forgettable romantic side characters. But don't worry, because today we're going to show you that there was a Ravenclaw out there all along, and his name was Albus Dumbledore.
Albus Percival Wulfric
Brown. Dumbledore.
We take note that throughout the entire 7-book series, no one ever says what house Albus Dumbledore is in. The closest time in the book series we come to this is in Philosopher's Stone, when Hermione remarks that she thinks that Dumbledore was a Gryffindor. But bear in mind, this is what Hermione thinks, and even according to her, this is just a thought as opposed to something she's actually read anywhere. Furthermore, this is still coming from the period in the books where everyone is speaking in harsh absolutes and don't really know much about sorting or the houses. In fact, at this point in time, it appears that neither Ron nor Hermione nor Neville have any idea of what the sorting ceremony is. Throughout the rest of the series, there's not one mention of what house Albus Dumbledore is in.
I never liked these curtains. Set them on fire in my 4th year. By accident, of course.
Okay, I really need to get rid of that record scratch sound. Dumbledore clearly says in this scene that he was in this dormitory before and he destroyed those curtains. But for any of you claiming that this is proof that he is a Gryffindor, I want to point out that the movies are not canon. Only the books are considered canon, and more importantly, this scene does not happen in the books. In fact, this scene in the books happens in Dumbledore's office, and he definitely does not say this line of dialogue. But at this point you might ask, but what about Pottermore? Okay, I'll admit, there still is some evidence supporting that. And the new Wizarding World website, it once again says that Dumbledore is a Gryffindor, and a letter written by J.K. Rowling through the words of Percy Weasley, Dumbledore was one of the most famous Gryffindors. But ever since the release of Crimes of Grindelwald, we've noticed that J.K. Rowling can change the canon presented by Pottermore, especially if that canon isn't firmly established. I'm talking about the obvious fact that most fans believe that Minerva McGonagall was born in 1935. Crimes of Grindelwald, we see Minerva McGonagall teaching at Hogwarts in 1927, and in a flashback with Newt and Leta, we see her teaching even before that, implying that she was actually born more than 30 years before we were led to believe. The Fantastic Beasts series, showing us far more of Dumbledore's backstory than we had ever known before, it's quite possible that we're soon going to get a reveal that something we firmly were told or led to believe about Dumbledore is in fact not true. And so that leaves it up to us, the viewer and the reader, to determine what house was the headmaster in when he was at Hogwarts, and the evidence is self-explanatory. Dumbledore's Patronus is a phoenix. His own Patronus is a bird, not unlike the eagle, which is a symbol of Ravenclaw house. Dumbledore, as a student, prided himself on intelligence. We have an entire article dedicated to him in the chapter In Memoriam at the beginning of Deathly Hallows, where it mentions what Dumbledore was like as a student. Dumbledore did not care about fame, he did not care about glory. All he cared about was academic achievements, and that was shown throughout his entire career. The teenage Dumbledore used to think about fighting for glory and standing up for the meek and helpless. No, he thought about winning more prizes. Did Dumbledore hang out with friends? Was he super loyal? No, he was a hermit who stayed shut up in his room and sent letters to notable magical people, including Albert Waffling and Bathilda Bagshot. Did he support blood purity or want to increase his own status? Did he have ministry ambitions? No. He just wanted to show off how talented he was. But wait, didn't he devote his entire life to fighting the dark arts? Well, as you remember, up until the summer he graduated from Hogwarts, Dumbledore didn't care about fighting the dark arts. In fact, he was nearly seduced into joining Grindelwald's rebellion and joining the fight for wizarding rule over muggles, the complete opposite of what would be his final career goal. And what caused the change that made him finally decide to fight the dark arts and take on those Gryffindor characteristics that some of you may claim that he always was? The death of his sister, Ariana Dumbledore. In fact, it wasn't until Ariana Dumbledore died that Dumbledore would have considered himself a Gryffindor and would have dedicated his life to fighting the dark arts. And there you have it. After Dumbledore had graduated from Hogwarts, he really did start to take on more of those Gryffindor characteristics. But as for when Dumbledore was a student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he was a Ravenclaw. So what do you think? Did I mess up? Or have I just proven that Dumbledore was a Ravenclaw the whole time? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time on Constant Review.